The ADOT planning.
Jamie Brown with PEG.
Rick Ellis, PAG RTA.
Lance, Peg.
Hannah Oden, PAG.
Mike, Jose Rodriguez, Town of World.
Paul Casartano, Pima County DOT.
Sam Credio, City of Tucson. And then we will go to the folks that are online. First up, I have Galo Vale.
Morning, is Nalo Tamasarita.
Mark.
Good morning, Mark Novak, University of Arizona.
Thank you, Mark. David.
David Zinda, PAG.
And do we have anyone else online that I didn't call on?
Patricia Pablo with the Tono Autumn Nation.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else? All right, hearing none, we will go to item 2, in-kind reporting. Jeanette Duren.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the TPC. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you're paid with federal dollars, please let us know now or at the end of the meeting. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Jeanette. We'll move to item 3, approval of the March 6, 2024 meeting summary. Have you all had a chance to review? Were there any questions or comments on the meeting summary? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Okay.
Second.
Moved second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to item 4, fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 2029 TIP development process update. Jamie Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on the TIP development process. And so I wanted to talk about 2 issues that came about at our special meeting 2 weeks ago. The first I want to talk about is fiscal constraint and how we're going to address that in the draft TIP. And then after that, I'll move on to the issue of RVP items. So at the March 6th special meeting, there was a conversation about showing fiscal constraint for STBG in the draft TIP. So I want to share with you, just read aloud some draft text that we are proposing to include in the fiscal analysis chapter of the draft TIP, which we hope to provide to you as soon as we can. But the draft text, well, just as a kind of a preview or opening remarks on that. So as a reminder, the TIP development process is a snapshot established in the fall of 2023. The TIP is developed based on a projected amount of available STBG funds developed in partnership with ADOT and PAG through the TIP subcommittee process. Completing RTA's promise is still our priority, and so balancing programming to ensure RTA eligible projects are able to obligate the available funding is a major consideration. The available STBG funding is used on major roadway projects and to ensure fiscal constraint with the apportionments of STBG greater than 200,000 in population, of which 100% of the federal apportionments are programmed. The actual amount of federal STBG is determined on an annual basis and is subject to change. Based on direction from FHWA, ADOT may adjust the amount of STBG based on obligation limitation rate modifications, adjustments to federal apportionments, or other factors. For example, PAG's STBG greater than 200,000 apportionments were recently reduced by ADOT to reflect 2020 census urban area rebalancing. Thus, PAG and ADOT finance staff coordinate throughout the year to monitor and adjust to changes to the federal ledger, including tracking the status of projects that are expected to obligate STBG prior to annual deadlines. This is to ensure that fiscal constraint is maintained by not programming more STBG than is available while also avoiding the loss of funding to the region. If changes to the federal ledger result in additional STBG becoming available, PAG staff coordinate with member agencies to identify eligible projects that meet RTA commitments, such as through a supplemental call for projects. Smaller suballocations of STBG are also used to fund smaller projects consistent with RTA category 41 through the competitive regional transportation alternative grants process. And suballocations are adjusted to ensure that obligation limitation is not exceeded each year. And David Zinda is online. He's works very closely with ADOT finance staff to monitor the federal ledger and ensure that we do not lose any funding to the region. But as I mentioned, we'd like to include that text in the fiscal constraint chapter with the tables in the draft. The second issue I wanted to raise is 2 weeks ago, as you may recall, during the special meeting, the TPC approved a motion to ask the management committee for direction on whether to include PEG OWP items in the TIP. As you recall, we shared a preliminary draft project list prior to the special meeting. We received feedback from member agencies. We summarized that and included that in a comment response matrix. And one of the comments was about the misalignment between the PEG OWP TIP IDs and the overall work program. And so we were reminded that it is not required that the OWP planning initiatives also be included in the TIP as long as they're in the regional council approved overall work program. And it was a recommendation, therefore, to remove those OWP items from the TIP. So last week at the management committee, thank you, Mr. Credo, for being there to summarize the key points and concerns of the TPC from the March 6th special meeting. After discussion by the management committee, there was a motion to keep the OWP items separate from the TIP. And that motion was approved unanimously. And so that direction was provided by the management committee as requested by the TPC. And so I'll pause there, but I believe with that, Mr. Chair, the only change to the project list in the packet from the March 6th version was a correction. Thank you, Mark, for catching something with regard to, as we were transitioning from coding the ADOT projects with ASTBG to the specific federal programs like NHPP, we missed something. And so Mark asked that we correct that for, I believe that's the Country Club and Keno TI's project for fiscal year 2026. That's correct. And so that adjustment has been made to this project list.
Great, thanks, Jamie. I do have one question, but I'll defer to my colleagues here. Did anyone have any questions or comments for Jamie based on those remarks? Paul?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm curious to hear from both PAG and ADOT in terms of the fiscal constraint challenges associated with now no longer highlighting or featuring those projects that are going to fund OWP activities. As we know, those funds are taken from the regional revenue of STBG and in some cases HERF and other funding sources. So how will that be accomplished within the fiscal constraint demonstration of the TIP? Will it be documented that, you know, the total of $10 million is taken out of both STBG and CRP funding from the regional pot and used in this other area within the TIP, or how will you tackle that? Do you have an idea on that yet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Casertano. And I don't know if Mark has any thoughts, but what we're proposing to do, we have a chapter, or it's an appendix in the draft TIP. I'm showing this is the approved TIP from 22 through 2026, but the draft that we're working on will be similar. So we'll have various tables. It will include the total STBG amount that we see in our federal ledger that's projected. But we'll also have fiscal constraint. The fiscal constraint will be focused on the greater than 200,000 population band because we know that we're going to program 100% of our obligation authority on that. Then we propose to include text that describes how that OWP funding will be taken out of that total to demonstrate fiscal constraint. And any residual that we would then use to program through the special call for projects to ensure we don't lose any funding to the region. So that's our proposal. Mark?
Yeah, as long as you can determine, fiscal constraint is just reflecting that you're not exceeding program funds. to what you expect to have available. So I think calling out those different pots of money and then also showing what is being programmed as part of the work program. As long as you do show that and it reflects a total picture of your expected funding and what you have programmed, both for the work program and in your TIP, that should reflect and describe your fiscal constraint.
So showing what's being spent on the work program will be done within the text, but not within a TIP line item or within a fiscal constraint table? Do you have a sense of how you're going to, because I guess I think the original intent of featuring the OWP, the PAG items was to kind of account for, here's the regional pot of money. The region has decided to spend some of that on, regional pavement data collection, for example. Used to be a pass through to the city of Tucson. Now it's an activity within the OWP, but it was shown to demonstrate that we've got the regional pot of money. We're going to spend some of it on these PAG activities. So that, I think, was the origin of featuring projects within the TIP line item. So now it will be shown as a descriptive taking off the top. Is that kind of the way you're thinking about doing that, or? Okay.
That's how we're proposing to do it. And keep in mind, we only have regional council approval right now for FY25 in the OWP for the STPG. Right? So we can't go any further than that in the TIP. The TIP is from FY25 through 29. So that's why we're going to use text to describe that.
Yeah.
Fiscal constraint.
Great, that sounds good. I'm just following the bouncing ball becomes very bouncy sometimes, so having that connection point between the OWP and the TIP, I think, is helpful for people to understand that the regional money is being invested in these OWP activities that regional councils agree.
Thanks, Paul. Jose?
Mr. Chair. For the OWP, it's been going on for years. Have we actually used all the money that was allocated to these programs? I know you so much money for payment management. We have various overall work programs. You allocate so much money. Have there ever been a year where we actually don't use up our allotment for the program? It's like a regular project. You put too much money in, then we say, okay, we don't need all that money. So how does that get returned back to the pot?
Jamie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Rodriguez, members of the committee. So, this would be probably best addressed by our finance director, but my understanding is that as we anticipate the funding for the future 2 years of the OWP, we're looking mostly at a ceiling for those expenditures. If we are going to exceed those, we would need to amend the overall work program. So in that regard, it's considered a cap on the spending for PAG activities. And so any that is expended then gets carried forward into the next OWP. And so we do show in table 1 of our OWP, we do show some SDBG carry forward, for example. And I'm wondering if Mark, you wanted to speak to that.
And so it is a 2-year work program. So that at the end of that 2-year work program, we have to close out those authorizations that were made for that grant period, that 2-year period. And then for the next work program, approved work program, any remaining funds have to be reflected in the next work program. And then what ADOT does is they de-obligate and then they re-obligate those balances for the next work program period that are included, the actual funding line items that are included in the work program for the next 2 years.
Thanks for your question. All right, great. Any other questions? Any questions online? Don't see any hands up. Jamie, I do have one question on TIP ID project 81.06 First Avenue Grant to River. The scope does not appear to reflect the action the RTA board took on that project. And so I'm just curious if that's something that did we just miss when we went through the list, or is that going to be updated at some point? Right now it still says widen to 6 lanes, but that's not the scope of the project anymore.
Thank you, Mr.
TIP ID number was that?
8106. It's our RTA First Avenue project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we need to take back and look at. So I believe that whatever is in the IGA is really the authoritative document. So
Okay.
thank you. I don't know if Rick, if you wanted to speak to that, if you have any knowledge of that issue.
Yeah, it was approved with the 4-lane section, and so we'll want to correct that in there specifically.
Okay. And then the total cost for the project, I think, has not been updated, based on the recent cost of complete exercises we've done. Is that something that'll get updated along the way? Obviously, it doesn't show enough money, enough funding for that project. So I assume there'll be some tip amendments down the line. Is that at the point in which that total cost will be updated?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my understanding as well. So we had to kind of establish sort of a stopping point for making any adjustments so that we could go through our internal technical analysis. So after this tip is approved, we can work with the city of Tucson on any adjustments that are needed through a tip amendment process. Rick, is that consistent with your understanding as well? Yes.
And that was the October tip subcommittee. It was kind of pencils down, right? That was
Exactly,
a snapshot in time.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Requested updated cost estimates.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Any other questions or comments for staff? This is an action item. So I believe the action is to approve oh, there we go. It's on the screen. So I would entertain a motion for this action on the screen. Anyone?
So moved.
All right. I'll go with Heidi. Moved. Is there a second? All right. Second by Jose. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, we will move to item 5, Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan RMAP update by Hannah Oden. Hannah?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. My name is Hannah Oden. I'm a planning coordinator with PAG. And today I'm just going to provide a brief update on the 2055 RMAP currently under development, specifically the RMAP working group updates and the project list update. So far there have been 3 RMAP working group meetings. The first was held at the end of November, and the second was held on January 16th, and the third was held last month on the 29th. So we are tentatively scheduling our next meeting for April 8th at 1 o'clock in a virtual format. So stay tuned for additional details confirming that date and time and any other details for that meeting. So far the working group discussion is focused on evaluating performance measures and providing guidance on the 2055 RMAP targets and discussing the project list. So PAG staff has discussed possible recommendations to the project list and discuss projects with committed funding to help inform the ultimate project list. Working group members have provided feedback on these discussions, including funding amounts and retaining, adding, and removing projects in the in-plan project list. So overall, we continue to work with and receive feedback from jurisdictional members and to refine or to further refine the project list. So once the RTA next project list is adopted by the RTA board, that information will be incorporated into the 2055 RMAP project list. The next step is to continue to align the project list with the fiscal constraint, which is currently projected to be approximately $16.2 billion. The RMAP working group has also been briefed on the modeling work that the PAG data science team has been working on. And just as a reminder, all projects in the RMAP Project Explorer, all projects are in the RMAP Project Explorer, where jurisdictional partners can export project lists and view details, including performance reports. And of course, these details can be updated as needed. All right, so this concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. No is also available to provide updates on the activity-based model development. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions for Hannah? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, Hannah, we had talked about, staff had made note that you may revisit the fiscal plan estimates of anticipated revenue and fiscal constraints, see whether or not that could be pushed. I'm wondering, in light of the acquisition of new projected sales tax revenue for RTA Next, are you guys considering, or has there been discussion about a parallel effort for the other fund sources within RMAP to kind of do it concurrently. If the RTA Next revenue projection comes back higher, it's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship, but I would imagine it may impact the other, the approach to the other revenue, reasonably anticipated revenues going forward. So have you given that any thought, or do you have a timing on that, or are you just kind of waiting to see what comes back and go from there? I'm just curious.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Members of the committee, yes. So it was always our intent to go back before we locked in that fiscal constraint number and revisit all of them, the whole menu of funding sources. So especially because we will have like the as collected numbers for last year, so we could, continue to look forward. So yeah, if we do get new revenue numbers for RTA Next, then that would definitely be part of it. At some point, we'll cut that number, just simply like you did with the tip, put a pin in it and run with that. But yeah, based on the timing, what we're thinking about right now, yeah, we should be doing that pretty soon. Next, I would say probably in May or June, probably earlier.
Thank you. Just one quick follow-up, Mr. Chair, because I don't remember the figures right off the top of my head, but looking at some of the previous RMAP fiscal constraint numbers and knowing that the horizon date is going out, there just seemed to be a different relationship for, just an average funding per year seemed to go down precipitously, which I think you might want to take a closer look at, just to make sure that, if there's brand new assumptions and that makes sense to everybody, that's fine. But it kind of struck me as something that might need a little bit more attention, because we're going to be collecting or having more revenue because of a longer horizon period. Yet the fiscal constraint number is very close to the shorter horizon period of the RMAP 2045 update. So that relationship just seemed a bit awkward to me and might need a little bit more investigation.
I have a quick question for you, Hannah or Jeanette. You mentioned that the RTA Next project list, it will be included in RMAP, but obviously that's kind of in flux right now. So is my understanding correct that it's could potentially hold up RMAP if that continues to be unresolved?
Mr. Chair, members of the TPC, ideally it won't, because we at some point have to move forward with the RMAP, regardless of what's going on with RTA Next. So hopefully, we can get a feel for where that's at and make a good assumption. But I think right now we're running with the assumption that it's going to, the sales tax will continue, which is the same assumption we made last time. And then should that not be the case, next year, then we'd have to do an update. But at some point we just have to run with the assumption and work from there and then adjust as needed. But
All right, great, thank you. What was it?
Do you need to do an amendment to the RMAP if the RT doesn't pass?
yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we would.
What does that entail?
It would just be an action of the regional council. So it would come through the committees and we'd have to look at the new fiscal constraint number and what projects we would cut from the RMAP and then take it from there. So.
And then projects that are listed in the RT Next will be wiped out in the RMAP.
Essentially, but I mean, if there's a reasonable expectation that those projects would happen in the next 30 years, then we can look at that. But something will have to come off the list in its place, right? So if there's projects.
Take that call, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We have to prioritize their projects.
Right. It might change your prioritization.
Any other questions? Any online? Any hands up? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Hannah. Appreciate the update. We'll move on to item 6, dynamic traffic assignment model development. Dr., and I'm gonna try not to mess this name up, Hansu, no?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can I just interrupt real fast? There's a lot of great stuff on the agenda, and I want to make sure that you can maybe lay out the relationship of dynamic traffic assignment, ABM, so that we can kind of understand a little bit more clearly what the uses of each are and the relationship of the different models that you're running. So I'm sure you're gonna get to that, but hitting that initially, having that overview and perspective of what the DTA is in relationship to your entire model set, I think should be really helpful. So,
Yeah, I understood that. That's great. And the kind of the comments. Thank you so much. And thank you, and Mr. Chair, and the members of the Transportation Planning Committee. My name is Hansino, Data Science Administrator, and I'm going to just talk about, and mainly just the three items. I'm sorry, just I'm checking. Is it not working? Is it working now? Let me double check. Okay, it's not working. So I actually just brought here and the three items on the data science team, and I'm sure just the plus with and Hannah and another just a CRP project, and based on the discussion with the regional council and your interest, and so I just brought here just the three and the CRP and the project items together with Dr. Shalpuma. And the first item here is the dynamic traffic assignment model development update. So I'd like to just talk about more just kind of just a relation between like a dynamic traffic assignment and the current activity-based model development all together in the at the end of just two slide decks. And the first I'd like to just talk about first the dynamic traffic assignment model development regarding just the CRP and the carbon reduction program. And here's the background and the project tasks and deliverables and the project timeline will be discussed. And background first, and we have so far like it's the two and travel demand models and the trip-based model, and which was used for and the tip development so far. So we are actually targeting just the next and the RMAP and the further just the tip development and using just the activity-based model recently developed. And we also have just another and the exploratory tool development related to activity-based model, and currently it's working on. That's the next the agenda item. And the travel demand model estimates the travel behavior based on roadway, transit, and the social economic factor. And but relatively kind of just simple and compared to dynamic traffic assignment. And total lanes actually used and the signal presence, we don't actually take any other just the signal timings. But it's actually good tool, and especially for just working great, and or just many other just agencies nationwide actually using the current just a tree-based model as well. But we are actually a little just advanced here at this moment. But typically just a travel demand model provides aggregate level of just the volumes of time of day, especially for AM and PM and midday and just nighttime. And dynamic traffic assignment model just compared to travel demand model and officially actually static assignment model and the use in the travel demand model. And the DTA model actually used in the more individual vehicle behavior based on just the travel demand model outputs and the using origin destination demand. But instead of like just the full time of day, we can utilize like a much just a higher temporal resolution every 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And also we can incorporate all those activity diaries developed based on and the activity-based model, and which is actually one of the beauty, and we can just represent as a high resolution and no kind of just cut-offs like just the trips and or just 24-hour activities included in just our just dynamic traffic assignment model. And which actually requires a lot of just detail inputs and the detailed network modeling. Signal timing, actually, we received so far from just our jurisdictional partners, mainly from the city of Tucson, and all just the lanes, actually, each lane actually just configuration, we have all in our just the data, and for DTA model, and connectivity is much better, and also just we incorporate all those and schedule-based transit network. And the model can produce detailed volume, delay speed, and the capacity output based on just every 15, 30 minutes, or just a different just a level of just aggregation. And which also just improve the evaluation of the roadway project and also just the travel behavior changes much just in detail. The model captures the detailed air quality related measures. This is the one of the main kind of the purpose and regarding just the CRP project in the signal delay and the idling at the intersection in the detailed subperiod speeds. We actually reviewed all year and our just recently I was just NEI, APA, just National Emission Inventory Update discussion with APA. And I was just, and time of day is more likely just the chunk. And the AM, PM, afternoon, and the midday, and the nighttime. So which might be a kind of just the right input or just supposed to be provided just a better input and a much just a higher resolution of the speed distribution. So that actually just a DTA model can just handle and the input prepare just those high resolution just the input. That's the one of the major and the benefit utilizing just the DTA model. So here's just something like just a snap to just a snapshot of just our current TDM, which is a static model, and the other is a dynamic model. So left side and the static model, you can see those in the red line and the different colors. So based on just the volumes of daily. And but it actually doesn't show up intersection level and detail and just a simple just line only just to show the thickness. This is the location, I believe, in the I-10 and Speedway. And on the other hand, on the right side, you see actually just the physical interchange and all those independent vehicle movements, including trucks and the semi-trucks and the trailers together all. And also shows that and individual just segment level, just the performance measures together. So much higher just resolution and the detail, and also just the exact same number of lanes and the lane configuration also included here. So here's the tasks and deliverables, and we had just our kickoff meeting last month in February, and hope to just deliver all those things actually listed here. And the acceptance criteria development is very important because of we need to just satisfy and based on our just the model calibration validation and so not number four actually, and also just need to discuss about those actually relation activity-based model, DTA model, because those two are just a different model. So outputs are also different. So limitation and representing of just a high actually capacity congestion, and that's actually not shown well in just the activity-based model, but DTA model actually show better idea. And in terms of no physical and capacity and assigned into just the activity-based model, the DTA model can just handle actually just in real and the capacity consideration. And then just the input development, I'm talking about just here number 3. And is also just because of those and the resolution is a temporal. And I think it's just 10 times more just the inputs needed to develop this. That's actually also important. Another just the major task. And regarding just the CRP and the A2 model input development is also important. We want to actually utilize and outputs directly from just the DTA model to just importing to just the moves model or just the regional and the airport model. So that's another just a big step. We'd like to kind of just compare the difference between those two static model and the dynamic model. And also just the application is also important because this is the first time officially like a calibrating the model. So we'd like to just prepare and outlining the steps and the performing like a different after just the analysis, which might be just beneficial if you want to just our jurisdiction partners wants to use the DTA model and what just the package is using, then might be kind of just a good and the guideline to just the outlining and the orders and the performance evaluation. And documentation is actually just also important. And also we have another just like a number 8, just the item training and application support. So we have just 2-day training sessions and but maybe it's limited, but if any just the jurisdiction members, if you are interested, and we try to kind of just incorporate those and the activities. And here's the project timeline. And as mentioned, we actually kicked up our just a project last month in the February 2024. This is total just a 15-month and a project and the target like a 2025 in the April. So hoping to just deliver and our just the outputs and the results or just understanding of just the behaviors and the difference and will be and hopefully just delivered at the end of this project end. Then this is the all I have prepared for just the dynamic traffic assignment model update. If you have any questions, I think I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much. That was very informative. I do have a question. What's the cost for this project?
This is, as I remember, is right under like a 200,000, which is actually much compared to other agency effort. It's almost a half a price because of that and in-house just the model development is one of the kind of just the benefit actually is the reducing the cost.
Okay, so just under 200,000. What's the funding source for this project?
This is the OWP CRP.
The questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Sue, I continue to be impressed with, what your team is able to do and, the way that you punch above your weight with other modeling programs in the US. So kudos to you guys. I'm really interested in what you see in terms of the potential use of DTA. I know we've talked about it over the years in terms of a couple things you had shown on your slides include evaluation of roadway projects, and you mentioned before and after evaluations and the need to calibrate to make sure that the before and after is doing what you're expecting it to do. From an agency perspective, I think there's a lot of potential use. However, I don't know that I would be able to find capable staff within any of our agencies to be able to do this. Had there been any thoughts or discussions about what the training will look like? Will you be looking to bring in the consultant houses within the region to kind of give them a sense of what DTA is and what it can do? My thoughts kind of go to the evaluation that was done on the First Avenue corridor project to look at the 6-lane and 4-lane alternative. And ultimately, I think the city arrived at a really good evaluation there, but I'm wondering if there might be a role for DTA to help standardize an evaluation of a roadway or a corridor to look at design alternatives as we begin to scope projects out. Do we need intersection improvements? How much would bus pullouts help? At what point do we need to determine that we need additional single occupant vehicle lane capacity, for example? That's the big question that we're all facing, because we don't want to underinvest and we don't want to overinvest. We want to hit that sweet spot of what the right performance design is. I'm wondering what your thoughts are for the DTA modeling capability to help us arrive at that conclusion as we're looking at what's needed to improve roadway performance and overall network performance. And then the second part of that is your thoughts about training. I would imagine that we would have to bring in either PAG or consultant group to be able to do any such evaluation of our roadway, for example, or our parts of the network using DTA or other methods. So I know there's a lot there, but really great work. I think there's great potential application, and I'm curious about what your thoughts are, how that application might work to assist the member agencies in evaluating what the project delivery should look like and what the scopes of projects should look like.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Casatano. I think that was what we discussed when you were here. And yes, this is a really great tool. Also, just we need to spend a lot of time to calibrate and validate just the model. And also all those things, what you mentioned, is doable. Like in reality, actually just the lane change is a more detail, all those lane configuration, plus the impact is actually we can evaluate just the delay component and how much delay is saved, all those roadway configuration to lane just a left turn, and it is also doable in just the real, like just simulate the model, like just how many vehicles are running through, and actually just the output's doable. But the reason why which we are focusing on, like just the regional, like just the calibration validation, but actually just the individual consultant can just participate and there's something like just a small like a study area, like just a project level, and getting all those developed in the original model, and the consultant can just develop the further detail, and there's any other kind of just ideas you want to just evaluate it. First Avenue, like just you have a different just a strategy in geometry that could be kind of just evaluated through the model and the more detail, and all just the kind of timings that could be added together, and you can just optimize and using like just a synchro model and evaluate just together. And that's what I'm thinking. Like overall, it's good. Like I is developing like just a regional model, and then just the jurisdiction can just participate and developing just a further detail and a small just a study area, sort of like a project level or just a corridor level. And that might be a kind of just a good idea. And also just the training, what we are actually just for this training and through the project is highlighting just how to use the DTA model, just the generic one, and maybe just some just the intro and what DTA model is, and what kind of things we can do, and what kind of things we cannot, and also plus just the actual just the kind of a test. And I'm just thinking maybe like some congestion and the improvement and around just the school area or just any kind of just and the locations. If you think it's just a good idea, we can kind of just compare those two and the different after study and as just the example through the training. So I think just that's what I'm just overall thinking through this project. And plus just the air quality, just the component and how much is it.
So just a quick follow-up. So in the way that consultants currently will, you know, if they're working on one of our projects, they will go to you for the, you know, travel demand model data for the cutout piece that they want to evaluate within our network. They would do the same, but may use the DTA model as a deeper analysis to be able to understand what the impacts of, you know, access control and bus pullouts and intersection improvements and lane configuration might do to a project as it's being conceptualized.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but it's always less that we need in the improvement and through just committee or just the upper management team. And because of this tool is a very just valuable, and we understand that, but at this time, just we show our just a travel demand model by any request. So actually just compiled model and shared with the consultant through the actually inputs. But we only just share the approved model, which means that just the regional council approved our map and TIP and only just the product and actually just the doable to just share. So something like a similar kind of a concept. I'm just thinking, we are thinking, and but this is also just that we need sort of like just approval in the process.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions before we move on to the next item? All right, we'll stick around because I think you're up for item 7, activity-based model exploratory tool development.
Yeah, again, thank you, and Mr. Chair and the members of the committee. This is the second item, but we actually packed and now just have an activity-based model. So this is another just a big effort, and this is not kind of just a small the project and activity-based model exploratory tool development. So just the first in the background of activity-based model, and which was actually developed in the mega region, including just the Phoenix area, and back in just 2018. But started in the 2008, just spent around like a decade to develop just the whole activity-based model to the mega region. But we realized that just our need is different, little different from just the Phoenix area. So we actually just started in the own like just the activity-based model in 2019. But actually COVID-19 pandemic just changed a lot in the different nowadays and the new travel behaviors. And so we kind of just try to just continue and improve that and the model to just incorporate those different just the behaviors post-pandemic. So including telework and the freight and the airport model improvement during the time. Then we actually conducted our just the 2 peer reviews, and finally just we actually expecting to just use and the testing just the activity-based model for our just RMAP 2055. So here is actually just kind of just a simplified and activity-based model. We use and place a synthesizer in the mimicking almost the more than 1 million population in household level. Then just apply like just the 2 different just the choice models and long-term work in the school location and the midterm transportation mode choice model in under household level. And just choose daily activities and from the activity tours and the trips, then assign those trips and to the transportation network. So then back to and our original like just the question, why we need this actually activity-based model exploratory tool. So we have a lot of just uncertainty in the future year, but our just the role as a required to just apply. And one of the examples, just the AMET 2055 is actually a long range transportation plan. So to incorporate all those actually in the uncertainty in the different environment, we'd like to just improve in the transportation policy decision making, uncertain transportation systems and the environment. So finally, just they establish a better understanding of a fine resolution travel behavior on uncertain transportation conditions and its impact on regional transportation system and air quality. So simply here, and three is circles and transportation land use policy can affect those results and the future uncertainty was another big factor. We don't know exactly just how many is the autonomous vehicle will be in just the future 2055 or electric vehicle and the share, and we don't know exactly. So that's a kind of a big uncertainty, and as well as like a policy and transportation project is also just not just the clear, but we can incorporate just the multiple different ideas of the project all combined together is a different like uncertainty, and we have to just deal with and for decision making for this region. That's what we need, and so impact is actually the high, and then just the first step is actually going through just a literature review, what kind of just existing approach and we can consider for uncertain and analysis and the review of the software tools and developed and to facilitate and our just uncertain analysis. And approach design is simply like just I kind of just captured in the FHWA TVIP EMAT and the tool, which is actually so far we discussed in the great tool, and PAG is actually just moving forward with that just the tool and first like a scoping and of the core just the models and the uncertainty levels and based on just the project level and the policy level and the uncertainty level, and plus just that we actually as a main item developing just the meta model. This is actually regression model plus with and those in the simulation techniques and Monte Carlo simulation of experiments. So design just a reasonable distribution of possible values of intended scenarios, identify data visualization, that's done as a key factor, and representing all the results clearly, and identify output performance measures and to be assessed. So those are kind of just including approach design. And the automation, this is the main task. I think maybe just busy or just maybe redundant, just but it's actually just sort of intended and develop a proposed exploratory tool with dozens or possibly hundreds of scenarios for uncertain analysis. So this exercise requires not just the one or three, and we usually do for tip analysis the base year model, forecast year Nobel, and build a scenario. There's three, but for capture all those like this uncertainty level and in just the future years, and we have to just run and the full models, not just the one or two, and maybe 10 and the several dozen or up to 100. But that's the actually starting point of this model development, and plus just regarding CRP, we'd like to just include this moves model together. That's just the core model, and plus just we may need to actually just show more just the model, just the outputs between those two different like as the core models. So under the core models, all this the portion like empty between those core models, we have to fill out using just the meta model. So maybe finally, literally, and we can kind of just have a understanding running like a 10,000 in the models. So that's all right. And also just the effort is huge. And because of simply just running activity-based model takes just 6 to 8 hours. In the moves model, running like just 8 hours to 10 hours. So combined together is 15 hours or even more. Then running like just 100 scenarios, so literally like 1500. Running the model itself is actually taking just more than 50 days. So that's a lot of effort. Plus, like thinking of like 10,000 models, it's impossible to run it. But and the meta model actually just add and fill out the gap between those the model runs and the performance measures. So that's the actually the effort, and we are thinking and highlighting those is actually just the air quality and the component and the carbon reduction. So develop an automation process between activity-based model, and the exploratory tool and the meta model, and to minimize the time consuming manual data process, because that's really challenging and physically not doable. And if we go through just the manual process, and then just finally, would like to just provide and the much just beneficial, like just the performance measures and together. And actually, we are actually going to review and the possible just performance measures, including not only like just existing performance measures, Apple related and the J4 related, and those all together and incorporated, and as well as just air quality performance measures. And vehicle fluid mix, and this is actually just a current model, activity-based model, does not differentiate just the EV and the ICE in the internal combustion engine, the vehicle. So we'd like to kind of just understand and how we can just evaluate those vehicle fluid mix and from just our registration data. So we actually thinking just different ways and reading some just the literature reviews. But maybe just the example, we can apply just the EV share of the total vehicle population, and to the model, just the VMT related, we can simply just apply that just to share to the VMT, or just internally we can think of different ways. And but Meg is actually just applying just very hard, like just the individual household level EV assignment, and that's actually just a different actually level of detail. But it actually takes a lot of just the time. Instead of that, we are more just interested in like because of that the result is actually not relevant to just the moves model, just the outputs and the regional level. So we'd like to just focus on just the best benefits, just utilizing just the moves model. So maybe just a little simplified version. So we're gonna kind of just review and develop those and the component and together in this activity-based model exploratory tool development. And AVM testing, calibration, and implementation is also important. And then we need to just also prepare all those and a large number of scenarios need to configure and the AVM and all this running. Those like just which is going to take more than 50 days initially. Then just expand those and 50 days effort to just many years and creating just 10,000 and more likely just the scenarios through just a meta model. Apply just a meta model to estimate just the key outputs and present the result in the data visualization approach identified. So, and as we did, and we'd like to just invite just the expert peer review and the nationwide and the practitioners and then professionals, and present our just approach and the findings to obtain just the feedback from the panel, the peer review panel, on recommendation of a modification of and setting up just the next steps, and prepare and the report and the work, including procedure results and the peer review feedback, and also period all of the will be delivered feedback, and we'd like to just share at the final and the real review and this meeting here. The project timeline, and we started in our project January 2024, total just a 60-month project, and then started like just April 2025, and committee and involvement, we actually plan and have a plan and the Army working group and the TPC and the PopTech as well. And review work in the product, the final result of the development will be discussed. So something like just spring or just later in the summer or just the summertime of 2025 and with the TPC for this effort. And that's all I have. Back to and the the discussion about just the, Mr. Casatano mentioned, is activity-based model is using just a static model, a static assignment model instead. And which is actually old-fashioned and compared to just a dynamic traffic assignment model. That's another just a big effort in the updating. There might be a kind of just another big next just OWP and the effort we are thinking. And this is not just small work, but finally, and if we have all those tools developed in the together with and the activity-based model component with the dynamic traffic assignment instead of a static and assignment. So which will just show much just better in the result. But in the current setup, we actually just we don't need to run all the way in the DTA model because of a DTA model run. What we have is a microscopic model, which it takes in the first just the code boot to run. It takes 3 days. So, and then one actually just a startup and that includes existing like assigned and the volumes, then will take and on another day, 24 hours. So including that, it's actually not possible incorporating all together at this moment with this and the activity-based model and plus just the activity-based model and the exploratory tool development. But we can actually utilize and after all just the model developed, then we can kind of just run the DTA model independently based on those and the final outputs and the final just interest. That's actually just a doable and the concept at this moment. So, and that's actually overall and kind of just the outline and the combining all together activity-based model, DTA model, and plus just the moves model. All those in the moves model, DTA model, just the integration is another next step, but there might be actually happening like it's maybe within 10 years. So this is an actually long process, as you just saw, actual development, the whole just the meta region. Just the one activity-based model development took 10 years. And right now, and the MAG has another just effort in the DTA model integration, and plus just other component in the frame model integration. So that's another just the 5 to 10 years effort. We also just thinking for next OWP items so far. So all this and the presentation, if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much. I do have the same question. What's the cost for this and the funding source?
This is it's we're under like is a 200,000, and that's the total amount just that we have. And yeah,
300,000. And what's the funding source?
This is the CRP as well.
Any other questions on the activity-based model exploratory tool? All right, hearing none, we will move.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, go ahead. I do see a hand.
I apologize. This is Dan Gabbio with Federal Highways. I have a question. Is the output of this effort going to be linked through moves as part of PAG's regional air quality conformity processes for future planning documents?
That's right. And but main just I think I was just showed here. Maybe I can go back. One of those is the main efforts here is just developing just the exploratory tool and the visualization result. Not only just including like just the normal like performance measures and but also just including all those and the regional like emission and performance measures together, and also just showing those impact of those changes in certainty. For example, just the electric vehicle, 30% just the increase, and how much is the impact, and together with other just the inputs into the actually side carbon reduction related. That's just one of the intended just the output here.
Okay. And I may have missed it, but schedule-wise, have you already begun the modeling effort?
The activity-based model development, yes, actually we have and developed, and then just this is actually the second stage, and incorporating those and the meta model, and based on just FSWA and the initiatives and the team of EMAT. That's what we are thinking. Those in the meta model development is actually under in process. We just kicked off and the last the January actually of this project.
Okay. If possible, would it be, would you be able to schedule a meeting with our FHWA Resource Center and EPA just to review some of the inputs and how the outputs are going to be linked to moves?
Yes, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that would be great. I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Paul?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Dan, nice to see you again. Your thoughts kind of prompted a couple questions. I know that, as we were getting ready to approach the development of the 2055 RMAP, PAG staff had talked about what the technology future will look like and the possibility of evaluating multiple scenarios, fleet conversions and autonomous vehicles and things of that nature. So it sounds like this exploratory tool will allow you to look at multiple parallel universes of transportation alternatives in a certain sense, look at different scenarios, but the timing doesn't seem to jive with where you are in the RMAP development process to drive the policy recommendations within that document in terms of where we go with any number of these types of things. Am I missing something here? I guess I'm having a hard time connecting to the tangible uses of the exploratory tool itself from like a policy contemplation and a plan development perspective. I see the value, but I don't understand clearly the application of how it might impact the way that a long-range plan is put together or policy recommendations moving forward. So I don't know if that's necessarily who that question goes to and like whether there's really an answer. I'm not really sure either, but I guess I'm just having a hard time connecting the work that's being done here with how it might be used for the core functions that PAG is performing within the region.
Or just maybe Dan answers, or maybe.
Am I right with the timing mismatch here in terms of scenario evaluation or?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Paul, it is, yeah. So this is happening at the same time as the RMAP development. So it's just,
Just not ideal.
it's just not ideal, but the ABM will be used in the RMAP. So this is sort of like the next phase of further development of the ABM. So, these tools will be used, in the next iterations of the long range plan. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm also thinking because of the development and then just next RMAP. The APN, this is the big and the effort, like running just the new models, those and the similar like patterns, the 50 days of running the model runs, and plus just additional effort. So to do that, actually, we need more just the technical parts and like just the computation. And we actually just brought just the new computers, nice computers, which might not be kind of just many, and compared to just the Mac operates 17 servers, but PAC only has just one server.
So just a quick follow-up on that. You mentioned, Mr. Chair, the investment of carbon reduction program funds into this effort. And I guess I'm also having a hard time understanding how the effort will drive the clarification of how best to invest in carbon reducing projects. From a grant perspective, I think you'll be better able to evaluate, fleet conversion issues on the overall network, but that doesn't necessarily drive what the PAG project investments are looking like from a jurisdictional perspective. We're not really going to, I think we're all moving toward that direction, but I guess I'm more concerned with tools that will help us figure out what are the types of projects and the right scales of projects that should be aimed at to reduce carbon as we move forward to scope out and figure out different projects and initiatives and things like that. So again, maybe not necessarily something to answer. It appears that you're looking at the larger issues and maybe not the more concise specific project types that will have distinct impacts on reducing carbon. Is that a safe assumption? You're looking at the macro scale impacts of large policy issues and not necessarily what will this project do to reduce carbon?
So it's actually just related to just the core model development and something like just we are really interested in just the air quality and the benefit and using this tool is reduce as much as we can just carbon. And then actually we can just thought about just the maximize the benefit, like including lots of just the transit and the mode change, mode shift, and plus just the benefit like a teleworking. All those kind of just the inputs could be just considered together. And that's one of the just the stepstones in the core model runs. That's actually doable. We can show those and the factors changes. And just you can see that just the bar up and down. Then just you will see that actually just how the performance measures the changes. For example, like the carbons and COE, CO2e, and that actually could be shown through just the model how it actually changes based on those and one of those is the main actually factor reducing like improving lots of just the transit users or just improving like just the bike roadway like just facilities and just more just the shift on to just the bike mode that can actually affect just the result and how much it is improved and the carbons and the other just emissions together.
So while we know that mode shift will have impacts on carbon reduction, you're going to be able to more accurately put the data behind what those impacts will begin to look like.
Yeah, so more accurately, and but I'm saying like reasonably because this is still just the model, and we are not actually just getting all those and real data, and this is the based on the many assumptions. But sort of like just giving you kind of just ideas and what would be the kind of a best option to improve like just the air quality and any other things.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you for indulging.
Of course, I see Dan, you still have your hand up. Was that from before?
Yes, sir. Just to clarify, so whether or not this dynamic traffic assignment model and its link to moves are going to be utilized as part of the current RMAP or not, I would just suggest that we do have a meeting just to review the inputs to PAG's air quality conformity model for the current process as early as we can. Just the lessons learned from MAG's most recent process. It's great to review the inputs of the model before you get too far into that, just to confirm with EPA and FHWA Resource Center that everything is aligned with expectations.
Great, thank you, Dan. All right, hearing no other questions, we'll move on to item 8, multimodal performance assessment, U of A project 3, Dr. Xiaobo Ma.
Good morning, everyone. Special thanks to Mr. Chair and committee members for your attendance. So for today's presentation topic is multimodal performance assessment. So this is Xiaobo Ma. I'm a data scientist here. And so this project, we aims to leverage existing data sources to obtain performance measures for multimodal transportation system. So this is a collaborative work with U of A. So for today's content, I'd like to divide it into 4 parts. The first one is the background introduction, followed by project review. The second one is management plan and schedule. The last one would be multi-sourced data availability. So let's start with the background introduction. So previously, we worked with U of A on 2 different projects. So the first one is comparative analysis and the integration of region-wide traffic data. So in this project, we estimated turning moment counts for around 370 intersections. Also, we uploaded MyVision minimum count data to PAG MS2 for year 2021 and 2022. We also reviewed and tested the developed procedure with multi-layer perception neural network model. So for the second project, we work with U of A. The title is Region-Wide Traffic Performance Evaluation and Performance Measure Development using multi-source data. In this project, around 100 MyVision sensors provide traffic performance measures. We developed meta-learning methods to estimate performance measures using GPS data. For the estimated region-wide traffic performance measures, they include traffic delay level of service, arrival on green, and arrival on red. Also, it has split failure. So for the current project we are working on with U of A, this project aims to leverage existing data source to obtain performance measures for multimodal transportation system to support RMAP and improve regional transportation and air quality modeling. So from this picture, from the screenshot, you can see we try to leverage existing data sources to come up with different performance measures. And in the end, we aim to develop a platform to monitor the performance measures. As for the management plan and schedule, it contains 11 tasks. The first one is kickoff meeting, literature review. We also include transit, pedestrian, and micromobility data collection. Also, we will conduct transit, pedestrian, and micromobility performance measure extraction. Also for task 9, it is acceptance criteria development. In the end, we will develop a platform to monitor the traffic performance measures. And the last one is documentation. And we want to finish up everything within 18 months. The last part is multi-source data availability. So in this part, we tried to examine all the data sources available to us, and we try to come up with as comprehensive as possible for the performance measures for us to use to quantify and evaluate the multimodal transportation performance measures. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. On that last slide, if you go back one slide, the city of Tucson can work with you on the e-scooter data. I'd also add that we have data for our bike share program as well, Tugo, that we can provide you with some additional data if you'd like. My question's the same as the last two items. I'm just curious how much this is going to cost and what's the funding source.
I think maybe it's under
okay.
I'm sorry, there's 100K.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And just to clarify, I believe the prior two projects were not CRP funded.
That's not the CRP.
And they were under that 200K. I'm pretty sure they were 150 or even lower, but those were precursors to this effort.
That's right. Because of this is more likely just carbon reduction related. We put it in the the CRP project because of the multimodal data. We are more than simplistic. We are sure that the two was a standard development was the benefit to just improve the scale from. So we actually consulted with the job about those and the project that we the process that was actually this.
Thank you. Paul.
Xiaobo, can you help me understand the role of private vendor location-based services in what you're doing here? Are you looking at that as well as these other data sources to kind of see the relationship there, or does it not really have a role in the work that you're doing? I'm thinking INRIX and the streetlight and those types of data sources that will show they do have some multimodal data products and whatnot, and I know they've been kind of hit or miss over the years. Will you be looking at that relationship, or is that not really something you'll be doing here?
So we had
Give me the microphone, just so people online can hear. There you go. Thank you.
So we had a meeting, actually, this is Dr. Ali Shamshirpur, and just the project, the co-PI is here together. And you can just discuss further detail, and we also just discussed with just the university team and actually discussed with the city of Tucson, the Tigo bike and the data, as well as just the micro mobility and the data, and together, and just the e-scooter data. And plus just we are also just talking about just Pima County and the still light data. That's another just a good product that we can consider. And we want to just compare and all just usable the data set. But and the discussion might be like just the Pima County is it can continue just the subscription with the still light data along the time, just which might be a kind of just beneficial. But at least just we are interested in just comparing it together and with other just the data sources. So those are all just listed here, and so that's now another kind of just another the data set we'd like to just review.
Thank you. Thank you. Jamie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Castellano, you were talking about the funding source for the previous activities, and I think you said that they are not CRP funded. Is that what I heard?
I believe those projects took place before CRP funding came to the region, but I may be off there. I'm not certain, to be honest.
If you don't mind clarifying the funding sources for the previous activities that you presented on, I believe those are CRP funded.
Those are not, but I don't just I don't recall in the exactly just the funding sources of that, and but I'm sure just the overview just to highlight that in the portion.
Okay. Thank you. I'm seeing them listed in table 6 of the OWP as CRP funded, but we can also clarify after this. Thank you.
But those are, I'm talking about the concluded projects that prior to this. I think this is a CRP STBG funded activity, and that makes sense. The previous things I think were before CRP was in the OWP budget. Is kind of the clarification I was trying to make.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Any hands up online? I don't see any hands up. All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. We will move on to item 9, which is the Regional Active Modes Plan Update. Anna Oden.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello again, committee members. So for this presentation, I'm just going to provide some information and a brief update on the PAG Regional Active Transportation Plan that was recently initiated. All right, so just for a little context, so in January, the PAG Regional Council approved a contract with Kinley Horn to develop a regional active transportation plan. So we began working with the consultant to begin the planning process in February. So on this slide, I just want to talk about some of the key elements of the plan. So this includes a vision statement, supporting goals and measurable objectives that will be shaped by public outreach. The plan will also include a comprehensive regional analysis of existing conditions and the needs to understand where investments are needed for active transportation. The plan will include extensive public outreach and engagement throughout the process, and ongoing coordination with the technical working group, which I'll talk a little bit more about further in the presentation. The consultant will be developing a number of illustrative renderings for public feedback that will demonstrate potential active transportation treatments. The plan will also include identification of corridors that have opportunities for regional or the identification of corridors that have opportunities for active transportation improvements that will provide maximum regional benefit. The plan will also include an active transportation toolbox, which is an important deliverable and that will be available for jurisdictional partners to utilize for active transportation planning. And lastly, the plan will include documentation of expected carbon reduction and associated benefits. So just the schedule at a very high level. So public outreach is anticipated to begin this spring into early summer. There will be regular committee updates throughout the plan development, and the anticipated completion of the active transportation plan is the end of April of 2025. So I mentioned the technical working group a couple slides ago, but as part of the planning process, we are forming a technical working group, or TWG, that will provide technical review and advise on the plan at various stages throughout the process over the course of 4 meetings. So this is comprised of jurisdictional representatives and additional experts as needed related to active transportation. So the first meeting is anticipated after the April TPC meeting next month. So I did send an email a few weeks ago. So if you haven't already, please let me know who you would like to appoint to the technical working group for your jurisdiction. So we just want to make sure that everyone who needs to be included is included on those meeting invites as we move forward. All right, and this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Hannah. I'll reiterate what she said. If you didn't already appoint your folks to the technical working group, make sure you send her your appointees. Same 2 questions. What's the cost for this plan? This one's the consultant. You guys hired a consultant for this. What's the cost and the funding source for this plan?
And Mr. Chair, the cost of this project is $596,000 or $596,992,000, and it is CRP funded.
Great. Thank you. Can you tell me what sort of regional coordination went into the kind of development of the scope and the selection of the consultant?
So we did look at additional plan or other regional plans, and we did have a selection committee comprised of subject matter experts to review the applications.
Got it. Okay, thanks. I guess the reason I asked is I was a little bit surprised the city of Tucson wasn't asked to participate on the selection and the development of the scope. The city's been, I'd say, pretty active in terms of active mode planning. We have our own Move Tucson Mobility Master Plan that I think we could have lent some insight, but I'm happy that we have representatives on the technical working group, and we look forward to engaging with you on as the plan progresses. Other comments or questions for Hannah? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hannah, could you go back to the slide before your schedule? It was just like your overall tasks slide. I guess here you go. Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious about the expected carbon reduction and associated benefits. Will you be getting down to identification of a active modes projects list and then assigning carbon reduction associated benefits with those scoped projects, or will you just be looking at overall carbon reduction benefits from certain investment strategies? How do you plan to target in what the carbon reduction benefits are going to look like with the plan developed?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Mr. Castertano. So for that part of it, so that's would be later on in the scope of the project. That's under task 6. So earlier, there's the corridor identification. So it'd be evaluating the carbon reductions based on looking at the potential corridors as well as just vehicle or potential trips that could be replaced by active mode as opposed to a vehicle. So we'll be diving into that in more detail, but it would be based on the previous analysis and the corridor identification.
So it may look something like a mode shift on a corridor, taking that general approach and then getting into the details of what that carbon reduction scenario would result in. Okay, very good. And then just to clarify, it looks like, again, the timing is not ideal in terms of outputs from, we've talked within the PAG walls for years of specialty plans kind of leading up to the development of a long range plan, so that you have an updated bike ped plan and an updated freight plan and an updated ITS plan, et cetera. And you take all those and then you put those projects into your long range plan. Sounds like your timing is not really going to be doing that with your RMAP.
I'll be rolling into the next one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anyone else? Questions? There's none online. I would just say that I look forward to getting an update after you've met with your technical working group and get down the the road on this project, and looking forward to hearing what y'all come up with. So thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, we are on to item 10, future agenda items. All have any future agenda items?
Chair.
List. Yes, go ahead, Mark.
So next meeting, I'd like to provide an update and share the opportunities for stakeholder input and public input on the state strategic highway safety plan, and also the alternative transportation safety plan.
What was that second one, Mark?
Yeah, alternative transportation safety plan.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Anyone else have future agenda items? I have two. One, as I would like an update from the pavement management working group. Did I say that right, Jose? Pavement management working group. I know that a consultant was selected, and I'd like to get an update on some opportunities for the region to participate on that contract. And then secondly, and I know this was requested previously, but maybe not in this context. I'd like an update from the transit working group. I know that the working group, I think technically reports to us as TPC, and I know it's been a while, so it'd be, maybe there's worthwhile in having an update from the transit working group and all the things they've been up to. Any others? I assume we'll probably have another TIP update in April. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we will be. I know we talked about it during the pre-meeting, so yeah, forgot to mention that we would like to bring forward another TIP development update. We will be requesting TPC approval of the final draft that will help us to kick off the 30-day public comment period. So thank you for that. And I do anticipate a formal TIP amendment initiating at TPC next month as well. Thank you.
All right. Airport, a very important TPC meeting to attend. All right, any others? All right, thank you all for your time today. Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.